Yeah, I'm glad you brought that back up. So how the UFOs often travel. And yes, this information comes from not just Bashar, the channeled entity, but from my connection then to the SSRNA. And whether that's through a specific being or through the connected consciousness, I'm yet to discover. Very often, though, when you start to do these kind of things, that kind of stuff becomes irrelevant. Where it's coming from, as long as you can feel it's from a benevolent place and the information's good, doesn't really matter. We always want to label things and put things so we can intellectually understand them. So yeah, so the UFOs, and this is their description of it. So the ship, of course, is a organic, biological entity with its own consciousness that's grown, artificial intelligence, and the pilot is merged with that consciousness to create a third consciousness, if you want to use that term. The term that comes to me, I often use, is 1 + 1 = 1, which gives you the trinity of, like, even if it was we're connecting now and having this conversation, we're both individual, but together we are together as well, and that creates a trinity of 1 + 1 = 1. Okay, so that's what this ship is. Now, how they travel then through space and time, their particular race anyway, and with their technology that they have, and their, not just their technology, but their belief, which is a massive thing, their belief system and what they know of how reality works, because that affects everything, which we'll go into actually in a minute. So they see these still frames of reality, of parallel realities, as what they are. So they can program into the ship, if you would, time and location, as a factor of as position of the object. So the ship itself gets programmed with a location and a time, and they can literally pop to that parallel reality, time and location. We'd call that teleportation, but that's the mechanics of how it works, and that's how levitation and things like that and telekinesis work as well, and which are very real. I do believe they're very real. I've had a little bit of play with that kind of stuff myself, with some success, so I know that it's real. It is consciousness over physics, is very, very real. So yeah, so if you had a coin in this hand, and you wanted to teleport it to that hand, it's not the same coin that teleports. You're shifting your perspective from a reality where that coin exists there to a reality where it already exists there. So it's not movement, the same as it's not movement if I placed the coin there. It's the shift between realities. What you're doing is shifting through the frame rate. You're moving through the frames and creating it there. So part of the equation of the coin is its location and where it is in time, and that's the same with the ships. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely makes it. Totally makes sense to me. And what is even more fascinating for the viewers, I might add, is when you're looking at a UFO craft flying over you, you don't know what time frame they've come from. They could be from the year 81, 89, and you're in the year 2015. And in a very basic, rudimentary form of perception, if they're further down the timeline and the occupant's flown over you from that year and you're in 2015, by a bizarre kind of way you've time travelled in terms of perception.
Well, the thing with that is that we actually time travel all the time.
We do indeed.
So, because if you see it from that perspective of moving through those frame rates, we time travelling all the time, but we're doing it in a set fashion. We're doing it in a linear way.
Yes, we are.
Where we perceive it as a movement through time. What happens when you become aware of that and start to play with that idea is time then becomes more malleable, and that's how these races naturally function. They don't see it as any other way. It's only because we're locked into that idea as a collective consciousness, and that's the same with everything. That's the same with gravity and all these technological ideas. Once you shift your awareness, then it becomes much more malleable, much more easy to use.
And I think they're causing paradigm problems as well, Johnny. The lack of concept of developing these technologies, and the fact that we're stuck in petroleum, and the fact that we've got primitive. I mean, these aliens describe our technology as primitive flight technology.
And it's 100 years. Like going back to what you said before about it feeling like the 1900s. We're literally at least 100 years behind.
Yes.
And it's not that we've not developed that technology, because we have. We've developed cars that can work off hydrogen and water. Yeah. We've developed these UFOs, these man-made UFOs, which they have. Yes. We've also developed the ETs that are kind of cloned and grown that look like ETs. So we have all that technology, that biological technology, the multidimensional technology, but it's all underground, as you know. It's all suppressed. If it wouldn't have been for the suppression, we would have literally been 100 years at least ahead now, technology-wise. Right. Because it's just common sense that it's ridiculous that we're still running cars on petrol. It's just, when we think of the technology we have now, the iPads and iPhones and you know, even the deeper stuff that we're working on, and that is the control. That is what it's all about. Once that technology comes out to the surface, where they can't put a meter on it, it's over. It's all over, because there's no control anymore. And that's what a lot of wonderful people like Nassim Haramein, the wonderful theoretical physicist, is working on 0-point energy and creating free energy from everywhere. And the idea of that is, within a centimetre cube of what we call space, there's literally enough energy to power a whole town. It's just tapping into that energy. That's where we're going. Once that happens, really, once it's all completely integrated, which may take 10, 20 years, but it will happen, could happen sooner depending on which reality you choose, then money will be obsolete, and you know, which is the root of a lot of people's stress, and that's the debt slavery that has been created from them, and that's what they want to keep, and that's why they keep the UFO idea or the UFO agenda or information under wraps, because once disclosure happens, then it will have to become mainstream of how they use these ships and how it works, and then people en masse will realise that there is an infinite amount of energy accessible to us. But that's for us to discover. Do you think humanity will be welcomed, Johnny, by the occupants out there? They're watching us very closely through time. Well, at the moment we're not. We're not. Because, and in a sense, that's what we're kind of under, is quarantined within our own solar system at the moment. Because, and again, you're going into different levels of awareness and levels of beings, and that there is, you know, a confederation out there of these beings, a very positive one, and there are negative ones as well, don't get me wrong, but where we're at now at the moment is these positive beings are watching to see what we do, and before we can start making our way out to the stars and being integrated into their galactic society, if you want to put it that way, we need to prove ourselves that we're not gonna not only blow ourselves up, but because that is what would happen with the mindset, the general mindset of the powers that be at the moment. If they all landed, we'd just shoot the crap out of them. Which which we have tried to do before, and most of them are impenetrative to that kind of stuff. One of the reasons is that they can phase out of our reality. So if you shot them, it'd go straight through them. Because they're vibrating at that much of a high level. So, and I do believe that they have stopped certain nuclear attacks and things like that, but it's all still very, very hush hush from their part as well, because it's up to us to save ourselves. Not again. A lot of people have this misinterpretation that we're going to get saved by these beings, but it's not about that. Again, coming back to your bridge analogy, that you're not creating a bridge. Then you're letting them come and help you. You're not learning anything. that bridge has got to be created, and we have to meet them as equals, as higher vibrational beings that aren't going to kill each other.
That's right. That's absolutely right. They are tough teachers. They're very tough teachers. They certainly are. And the thing is I just cannot imagine, at the moment anyway, I cannot imagine one of these Scandinavian-looking ETs sat in front of the United Nations. I just can't imagine it, because the military would just go fucking crazy, wouldn't they, as to what it is. And yet quite routinely, some of us in the UK are having them routinely come over the house and chat.
Yeah.
Just routinely.
Yeah.
And so it should be like that.
Yeah.
It should be like that.
Because it's a slow disclosure.
It's a slow disclosure.
And it has to be that way.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise there'd just be mass panic, and the powers that be at the moment that haven't really got any power anymore. We have the power.
Yes.
They would just absolutely, and a lot of these people are in contact, and the high level government officials have the same kind of contacts that we do. They know all this stuff, but they also know that it has to be done in a slow disclosure way.
In a slow disclosure way. But do you think it will lead to utopia, though? Do you think it would lead to a better human race if suddenly they disclose that we're not alone?
If you choose to experience
that. As what was said to Philip Corso.
So again, that reality already exists. It's not, are we going to create it? It's if you're going to shift into that reality.
Because, of course, in what you're saying, it does indeed exist.
All those realities all exist. Everything that exists is in the here and now. It's all accessible. Everything's accessible. It's whether you align to that or not. So again, you literally create, and you'll see this in your personal life, and you've seen it since meeting me. The changes that can happen with a shift of perspective, because again, that is everything. And this is why I work so much on people's belief systems, because it's massive. It's massive. Your belief and your definitions are huge, and so. Will it end up as a utopia? We can't even imagine how good it's going to be. We can't even imagine it. Even people like me can't even imagine how good it's going to be, because it's going to be, the changes that are going to happen are going to be unbelievable, but believable. They really are. But that's what is accessible to us if we choose it. But the trick is, or the paradox is, to move yourself into those realities, you have to become the state of it first, the state of that being first. So living like that is already a reality, like utopia already exists. Creating utopia within your own personal life then will create it on a mass consciousness level, because of course we're all connected. So the more people that can create that within their own lives, they become the pebbles in the pond, spreading the ripples and creating that on a mass level, and eventually you get the 100th monkey effect.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will get that kind of. Yes, you
which
will
is
get
what
that
is happening. Which is what is happening.
It is. I mean, what do you think, Johnny? I know I was sat here and it just came into my head, and I don't know whether it was the skies above speaking, or whether I'm, whether I'm a bit, but what I was interested in is the words in my head were: ask Johnny what he thinks about contact experiences. I know you are, and I certainly am. Being harassed. I know of somebody at the moment who's had to flee Canada because she said that she was having these experiences like we're having, but was sectioned. So it's a dual question. What do you think about contactees like myself who've come under quite brutal, vicious mind control, electronically delivered by the authorities, elements of the authorities, and also people having to flee places because they're being locked, but also this new drive our Prime Minister has. It's taking your work into the current affairs perspective. This new drive our Prime Minister has for labelling people as subversives and terrorists. I could be labelled because I'm quite extreme and quite out there as a terrorist. What's your take from your perspective on all that?
Well, again, it's a great example of the fear that they have,
right?
Because of the exposure that people like you and like me and many, many, many others are bringing up at the moment. So that's all what that is. So again, it depends how you want to look at it. You can look at it from different perspectives.
Yes.
A lot of people will see that as fear-based. They're suppressing us. But what that is actually going to do is bring more and more people out of the woodwork by saying those kind of things. And so, is it going to happen that they're going to start arresting people and saying they're terrorists because of sharing information and things like that? It'll never happen.
No, it won't happen.
It'll never happen. They're going to push for it.
They are.
They're going to push for it, but it'll never happen. And even within our own governmental system in this country at the moment, the opposition that the Tories and David Cameron have with the SNP and the Green Party and all those others coming together against austerity and things like that is it's a great sign. And even within the Conservative Party itself, I'm sure there is some wonderful people that are working against that. And you even only have to look at the Greece situation of what was looking to be a very benevolent process, that they fell back under the fear and folded, and ended up giving in and making a deal. Which can you blame them if they put under pressure and under the fear and threats? No, you can't blame them for that. People like us, though, have to move beyond that fear and those threats and realise that they're a choice of how to interpret it. And the more anyone would ever threaten me, the more I would just allow them to be what they need to be and not fight them. But at the same time, not agree with what they're doing. And it all depends on the state of being that you're coming from. So let people like Cameron do his job, and people that are in the government and can work with that kind of energy do their jobs. And this would be my advice to people anyway, and focus on what you can do within your life and with the people within your life to bring the positive change, rather than focus on the could be and would be's of what other people are doing. Even though on the surface it looks like that will affect people in a negative way, it doesn't have to. Because there's a lot of things in our country now that suppress people and keep them down, but you don't have to let it affect you in that way. You can move beyond the system and at the same time use the system to a benevolent purpose. You really can do that, no matter what they try to do, because it's not that bad.
Well, it can't be, can it?
It's not.
Considering aliens are flying over and want to be here, it can't be that bad, can it, ladies and gentlemen?
It's not.
You know what I'm saying? But it's been absolutely a fascinating exploration. It has. It really has been a fascinating exploration, and frankly, I'm exhausted in a good way after listening. He's just marvellous, isn't he? I just think he's just great guy, and I'm so glad to have met him.
Can I make one more point before we finish?
Yeah.
I do apologise.
Not at all.
It's going back to that hybridisation thing.
Yeah.
And that, in a sense, we are all hybrids anyway. And these Nordic beings that you're having your connections with, that I would call the Pleiadians, are, in a sense, what you could call our ancestors. The human race's ancestors. So, as we talked about the Essassani before, being an offshoot of how our DNA in the future, you could say that we are their ancestors. The Pleiadians, or the Nordics, the human race on Earth's ancestors. So we've kind of been advanced with their DNA. The original hominid species that was on the planet. Through genetic manipulation, and a lot of people use the term Anunnaki for that there were the beings that did that, which they are all connected in that sense. So everybody does have extraterrestrial DNA, and that's very much why when it comes to these other beings out there, they do look like us, but in very, very different ways, slightly different ways, because we're all really family.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
And it's powerful. It's powerful, and then you even go back beyond what we call the Pleiadians, and back in time, linearly speaking, to other races, which I would call the Arcturians, which are a particular race of beings that I connect with, and Syrians, and you could call them our grandparents, ancestrally speaking. You could call the Pleiadians our parents. We're the children at the moment. So that's That's where they're coming from, and they are literally billions of years more advanced than we are. So, and then talking about our DNA and the manipulation and things like that, the way that I've heard it, and then had confirmed to me, is that we are moving from literally having 33% of DNA activated up into a 44%, and what people, and it's even been confirmed recently that what the boffins used to call junk DNA isn't junk DNA, and what we've actually had before was the mechanics of how the human body works through the DNA that was active. What's coming into play now is the instruction manual for those mechanical processes of the body and the mind and the heart and energy. So that is what we're moving up into the 44%. Now the Pleiadians, or the Nordics, as we call them, run on around about 88% efficiency. So you can imagine what kind of awareness and
they're a wild bunch,
and you know, and they are
wild,
and they are, you know, and they're
very tribal, but yet spiritually developed.
Yeah, because because the reason they are tribal like that is because the further you get up that spectrum of awareness as a society, as a collective, you become like a hive mind. So you become the individual and the collective at the same time, which we already all are, but it's more of just your awareness of that becomes greater. So they are, and they're a great bunch.
Yes, they are. As a great bunch of lads.
And we've not even really touched on a lot of the experience I've had, but we can always do this again, I'm sure.
We'll do a return. It reminds me of the dialogues David Bohm used to have with another physicist, with an Indian physicist. I can't remember his name. But it's like having a dialogue with somebody who's kind of like on the same in the same club, as it were. You know, and it's just absolutely fascinating. I'm sure we'll see something on the beach tonight, but there again, we can't have any expectations.
We can't. The weather's brightening up for us anyway.
It is. So
that's worked.
So, and thanks for all your time, mate. It's been tremendous. And I hope people will greatly benefit. You know, thanks, Johnny. Cheers, mate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.